Alright YouTube, what's going on? My name is SlapHappyGreen and welcome back to some MLG Columbus Roundup. Going up shortly before this should be the little bit of insight into day one that I gave, but here we're going to talk a little bit about day two. Now day two was the winners and losers matches. The winners of day one's matches would face off against each other in each group, and the losers of matches in each group would face off against each other, starting with the losers today. So starting off, A Division was flip-sided mouse, cobble map. Actually, if I remember correctly, there were 2 or 3 good cobble matches today. Well, 2 or 3 cobble matches. I don't know if I would say all of them were good, especially that last one, but we'll talk about that later. But flip side, mouse. I came into this game thinking flip side, flip side, flip side, flip side. So much good about this team so far. So close to defeating Nip yesterday. Mouse has had their ups and downs, so maybe this could be Flipside's time to get back into this tournament. Of course, loser at this match would be eliminated. The major is double elimination. You lose one match, you go into the loser's bracket. You lose 2 matches, you're done. Right up until the playoffs. All the playoffs are best of 3. If you lose, you're done. When I first woke up to the start of this match, well, not start of this match, I woke up a little bit into the match. Flipside had a very heavy, very impressive lead. Early CT start on Cobble, which was great. I think it was 9-1 when I turned it on. It was shortly after Mouse had called a tactical timeout at 7-1. I was actually really excited to see that Flipside was doing so well on what was supposed to be the hard side of Cobble side map. But then we went over to CT side for Mouse, T side for Flipside, and as much as I would have loved to have seen Flipside run away from this after, I can't remember exactly what the half was. I think it was like 12-3 or something along those lines. But let me just double check here. Yes, first half was 12-3 for Flipside. But it seemed like on the T side, there were a couple of rounds where Flipside was in really good position to win rounds. They could have gone up to 13, 14, 15 and taken away this match in regulation, won it. Nice job. If not for one thing, actually really kind of two, and that was Chris J and Nico on Mouse Sports. These two guys had good performances in round 1 against LG. Sorry, game 1 against, who did they play? Yeah, LG. They had good games in day 1 against LG. But on day 2 against Flipside, they just took over once it became CT side for Mouse Sports. Chris J with the op, great entry flags, some good clutch frags later on in rounds. But the real hero of this match for me, for Mouse Sports, was definitely Nico. There were a lot of rounds where he ended up being amongst one of the only or maybe 2 guys left at the end of rounds. Bomb down, bomb not down, and Flipside trying to plant. And they would just find a way to pull out the round, get those frags, get that defuse if necessary, and just keep Mouse in the game. Like, in the second half alone, just from round 16 to 30, after going 9 and not so great in the first half, he went from 9 kills to 26, 15 frags in those 15 rounds. You include Chris J getting some good frags alongside him with the op, sometimes with the AK. And next, Dennis and Speedy, not necessarily getting a ton of frags, but getting enough to keep rounds close for guys like Chris J and Nico to pull out rounds. And it really allowed Mouse Sports to stay in the game. Once it got to overtime, which it went through a lot of overtime, final score ended up being 31-28 for Mouse Sports. That's 5 overtimes. It just ended up being kind of the same sort of thing, just going back and forth. Nico's performed a little bit better on T side in overtime than he had in regulation, but a lot of the rounds came down to players like Nico, Chris J on Mouse Sports, or World Edit, or Markelov on flip side. Shara had a good game as well. Blade had some very impact frags in a number of rounds, so did Bondic. Like, it was just such a close game that it became such a heart-wrencher to see Flipside go down 31-28 as they did at the end of the 5th overtime, because they had fought so hard and stayed so close in that game. But unfortunately, only one team can win at a time, and ended up being Mouse Sports. Kudos to them. Unfortunately, that does mean Flipside is out, and it means that Mouse Sports will play in the best of 3 tomorrow to decide second place of Group A. And we'll talk about who they're playing a little bit later. But second game of the day, we go to FaZe versus Splice. Again, I don't have anything for this, any markers. You guys are just going to have to be able to see them on the screen. Actually, that's pretty funny because in that graphic they're right above one another. FaZe on top of Splice. It was on Inferno. FaZe started CT, and it was just no. Didn't FaZe start T? I think FaZe started T. Shit, wrong button. FaZe. Where is that match? Right there. FaZe started on T, correct? Yeah, FaZe started on T, and they were just running straight through Splice's defenses. Eventually, they got up to as high as 9-0, and it was just Splice was basically roadkill. The side of the road, hanging in Arches, hanging in A, hanging in Mexico, hanging in B. They just never managed to get anything going. They managed to pick up 3 rounds before the end of the half, but near the end of the half mainly. But they just never really managed to put their defense together in a way that managed to work. One of the few rounds that they actually got was actually on a bit of a risky play where they left one player at B and 4-stacked A. B player managed to get a frag or 2, and then the rotating players coming in managed to pick up and salvage the round, get the defuse, get the retake. Not necessarily in that order, but and then after FaZe got on this CT, they won the pistol, and Splice tried to force up, try and get back in the game, but they couldn't manage to put any rounds together on T side. They couldn't break through FaZe's defense, whereas FaZe had managed to break through Splice's maybe a little bit too easily. Again, barely anybody for Splice over 10 frags. Arya finished with 13, Davey finished with 12, but next highest after that was Professor Chaos at 8. It just, they just never really seemed to get their players going, unfortunately. Sorry, checking my phone. Sorry. Third game. Envious versus Gambit. Defending champs. In an elimination game on day 2. I don't think a lot of people thought that this would be the case back in Cluj when they won the major. I think if you'd gone up to an Envious fan, you got up to Torrent or something like that and said, come next major, day 2, Envious is going to be looking to maybe be on their way out. None of them would have thought, they all would have thought you were crazy. They would have said, no way. Not unless they get a team like Fnatic or something in their first match, day 1. But as a Legend team, that shouldn't even be possible. But yeah, here they were going up against Gambit, who lost against Astralis but put together a pretty good match, surprisingly. Um, and for this match on Cash, it just ended up kind of being a half of strings in the first half. MVS went up 5-1, pulled it back to 5-5. Sorry, Gambit pulled it back to 5-5. MVS got their 6. No, sorry. Gambit started 5-1. I'm looking at this wrong. Gambit started CT side. They started off with the early lead, 5-1. MVS pulled up to almost even at 5-5. Gambit won their last round of the half. They went to 6, and then MVS just kind of ran out. It was a really good half for the majority of MVS, but not necessarily everybody was firing on all cylinders. Happy was at the top of the leaderboard. Apex was at the top of the leaderboard. Those were the guys who were having that good CT side, opening up sites, opening up rounds. But once the half switched, Gambit went over to T side. It was just a really strong push for Gambit. They actually ended up winning the first 9 rounds of their T side off of a lot of strong pushes, where they found holes. Hold on. Where they found holes in MVS's defenses. Spots like in mid or in A where they just weren't looking the right way or they didn't have players in the right position, and Gambit was able to expose them. In particular, Waylander had an incredible T-half. He was getting 1, 2, sometimes even 3 frags over towards B really consistently for like 7 or 8 of the first 9 rounds. And some of that was he would be pushing B and he would just make really good plays. Other rounds it would be he would play it a little bit more passively, maybe play from Sunroom, and then he would just take down 1 or 2 players when they would push through B trying to gather information. But MVS just couldn't seem to find a way to adjust and figure out a way to deal with Waylander where he was, and that put MVS in a huge disadvantage in so many rounds. They ended up taking a tactical and working out a way to get their game back going. They managed to pick up 4 rounds in a row, but by then Gambit was already on match point, and as soon as they got that one more, as soon as they got that last one, that was just it, unfortunately. You could tell that there was a lot of disappointment in NBS. It really probably should have been a match that they won, but a couple of disappointing performances from Devil and Kenny S. Devil with 14 frags, Kenny S with only 10 kills. No rounds where he got even more than 1. Just not pulling out the impact plays that you need some of these guys, especially Kenny S, to do in order for NVS to succeed. And a lot of that had to do with them not being able to get an op into Kenny's hands a lot because they never really had a whole lot of momentum to have the money to do it consistently. But when you have a guy like Kenny S who relies so heavily on being able to use that op effectively, when you can't get that op into his hands, it means everybody else has to step up a little bit extra, and NBS just couldn't pull it out. Last game of the losers bracket was G2 versus C9. Map ended up being on Dust, which I don't know. Considering how much of an NA map you seem to always hear, I seem to always hear people say it is, you would think that C9 would have the advantage on that, but hold on. It ended up being a bit of a random, it ended up being the random pick off of G2 banning 3, Train, Mirage, and Cobble, and then Cloud9 banning Overpass Inferno, which means they got to choose the side that they started on Dust 2. And they chose T side. They chose the right side to start. They chose the side where they should have had an advantage. But throughout the entire match, they just didn't seem to be able to pick up their T side. They never managed to get entry frags. They were giving up a whole lot of early picks, and a lot of times that early pick was on Freakazoid, who's supposed to be their entry fragger. Which means it was left up to different guys to try and find that way for them to get into the site. And they just couldn't do it. They ended up losing the half 12-3. And unlike Cloud9, when G2 got over to T, they picked up the pistol, and it just left them in a terrible spot. Cloud9 called, when Cloud9 was struggling on T side, they finally called it tactical when it got to 8-0, but it was still another 3 rounds. 3 rounds at 11-0 before Cloud9 finally picked up a round win. And they even got a little bit of help in that round, because in that round, as G2 was making its move to start its retake, one of the players at door shot and killed a teammate trying to kill one of Cloud9's players. So they got a little bit of extra help. It ended up actually being only like a 3v3 or a 3v2 retake instead of something a little bit more even. 4v4 or 3v3. Can't remember exactly how many players were left. But again, just bad for Cloud9. 3 players under 10 kills. Shroud only had 9. Stu2K only had 9. Freakazoid only had 4 in the entire match. Skadoodle led the way with 12. Nothing had 10 behind him. But Smiths and Existence were just going absolutely ham on them, just wrecking the life out of them for most of the match. That's it for the losers bracket. Unfortunately, we're now out. Cloud9, our defending champions, Envious, are gone. Splice are gone, and so are Flipside. In our first game of the winners bracket, we had Nip going up against LG. Now again, like yesterday's match against Mouse, this somehow ended up being on Mirage, which isn't a terrible pick for Nip. Nip is a decent Mirage team. But again, like I talked about yesterday with Mouse, this is a fairly well-known map for LG. This is one of their big maps in most people's opinions. So the fact that, again, for the second day in a row, Mirage ended up somehow to still be in, like, Nip spans were Train, Overpass, and Inferno going into this match. You got to think somewhere in there, Nip has got to say, okay, we'll sacrifice having something, one of these 3 in there, so that we can get Mirage out of Luminosity. Like, if I'm whoever's going up against Luminosity next, I'm looking at Mirage as probably my first ban, because these guys have shown they're incredibly good on this map. Now, in this map, it was actually really good at the very beginning. Like, it was so close. They went back, that both teams went back and forth. I think Nip won pistol, and then LG forced up and got the second round, and then Nip forced up and got the third round, and then LG forced up and got like, it was back and forth like that for the first 6 rounds before the Ninjas and Pajamas finally managed to pull together a couple of rounds in a row to get themselves up to 5-3. But at that point, on the CT side, FNX and Cold Sarah just decided, you know what, I've had enough of this. This is our map. This is our tournament. We're taking over right now. And Luminosity ended up winning out the half to go up 10-5. And then they ended up winning out the entire map. They picked up pistol, and then the next 5 rounds, they just kind of ran away. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that Cold Zera and FNX, particularly on T side, not so much on T. Taco had some decent rounds on T, so did Fallen. But FNX and Cold Zero, for the most part, just almost completely took over the map after someone finally managed to win a couple of rounds in a row in NIP, finally getting up to 5-3. As far as threat in this match, bottom of the leaderboard, which unfortunately I think is going to be basically the undoing of NIP in this match, because it's official that Pyth is not going to be here. He's not entering into this tournament. They can't get him into Columbus for this match, which is kind of unfortunate because it could have been a difference maker for them. It definitely would have helped them out against Flipside. You got to think that the extra frags that Pyth would have brought into the game would have gotten them a much easier victory against Flipside, would not have gone to overtime. But you got to question whether it would have been enough to help them against Luminosity. I mean, we had 2 players on NIP finish at under 10 frags. Get Right finished 8 and 17, and then beneath him, the only player beneath him was Threat at 6 and 17. He had 4 kills in T half and only 2 in 6 rounds on CT side. But even then, like, as low as that is, as sad as that sounds, that they had 2 guys under 10 frags, the guys that they did have above 10, Force had 11, Freiburg had 12, Exist only had 13. Like, nobody really consistently fragged in this match after that 8th round where NIP went up 5-3. At that point, it basically became the FNX and Cold Zero show. Fallen was next. FNX finished with 29 frags, Cold Zero at 22. Next highest was Fallen at 18, and then you had Taco Fair at 10 and 9 respectively. It just was not an effective T side once LG made adjustments to the T side NIP was trying to run, and NIP couldn't adjust fast enough to figure out Luminosity's T side. So for the second winners match of the day, huge match. This was probably the biggest, most exciting match of the day. Like we talked about what am I looking for? We talked about how exciting and how huge the first match of the day, Flipside versus Mouse, had been. And it was. Don't get me wrong. It was an incredible match. But match number 2 for the B bracket, winner's circle, was Fnatic versus Team Liquid. And this match was incredible. It was not the longest match of the night. That still went to Flipside and Mouse. But this was another match that went in overtime. And that seemed to be a little bit of a, like I said, it seems to be a little bit of a, I'm missing the word. A little bit of a trend that a lot of our matches are either being really one-sided or really close, usually going into overtime. You look at Mouse versus Flipside, you look at Flipside versus NIP. Trying to think which other matches in day 1 went to end overtime. Actually, that's probably about it for day 1 too. Like there's just been such a variety of matches that have either been one-sided or overtime. And the ones that have been to overtime have usually been really good. The Flipside Mouse match earlier today was incredible. But for me, as far as the matches of today, this match took the cake. This was probably the most exciting match, most even match. Team Liquid versus Fnatic on Dust 2. And I think when it was decided what map they were playing, a lot of people were like, okay, this should be maybe a bit of a closer match than yesterday, but Fnatic should probably take it. And I think in the pick'ems for CSGO, the online yada 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 yada, that Valve is running through their CSGO client for people who basically want to try and get a golden Dorito chip if they can. 1% of people were picking Liquid to win this match. 99% were on Fnatic's side. But it ended up being a really, really good match. I mean, it was a pretty standard regulation as far as what you would expect. Okay, what teams are winning what rounds. Um, Liquid started on T side, picked up 10 rounds. They were playing very strong. They were getting really strong performances from Simple, from Hiko, from Adren. Liege was coming out with a lot of really clutch plays. Pretty much everybody was performing. Nitro was the only one who was a little bit low in the frag department, but a lot of the frags that he was coming out with were the right frags at the right time. They were impact frags, not necessarily clutch frags. Most of the clutch stuff was being done by Hiko, Adren, and Liege. And Simple was having a lot of good, strong impact frags, particularly openers as well. For Fnatic, there weren't any really superstar performances out of any of the players. I mean, if you just simply look at the leaderboard, you look at the stats. Everybody in Liquid, except for Nitro, was above 30 frags. Adren had 30, Hiko had 32, Liege had 32, Simple had 37. Those guys were all huge in the game. They all had a ton of frags to their name, a lot of impact kills, a lot of strong kills. They just played really well. For Fnatic, not so much. They played well, they hit some good shots, but nobody really took control of the game. And actually, there were a lot of times where it seemed like they could have, particularly with JW, but there ended up being a number of what I kind of tend to think of as like no respect plays. Early on in the first half, when Fnatic was, because Fnatic started out with the first 5 rounds. They won the first 5 rounds of their CT side, and then Liquid won out the half, picking up 10 in a row. I think it was in the 4th round. It was like 4v1. Last guy, they knew where he was, yada, yada, yada. And JW decided to try and go bunny hopping after him, trying to get a knife kill. And instead of going 4v1, a little bit of an easier kill, a little bit of a better eco, Team Liquid ended up getting the extra kill, a little bit of economic damage, extra gun they had to rebuy. And it just made it... I don't like those plays. One, because they're no respect plays. Like, I get it if sometimes in the right situation, going for something like that is the right play. No ammo in the chamber, don't think you're gonna have time to reload. Knowing you're close, like there's plays where the right play is to go for the knife. That was not one of them. That was in no respect. Oh, we've got this round in the bag. I'm just gonna go and try and get a little bit of extra money by knifing you instead of just shooting you. And it ended up costing him. And the reason why I don't like those plays, one, because of the no respect to it. These are all professional teams. I don't care if you're the #1 team in the world. I don't care if you're 50th. I don't care if you're 100th. I don't care where you are in the standings as far as how people like to rank where the teams are as professional teams. You're all professionals. You're all trying to make a living out of this. You're all trying to win this turn. Win this. I think the official prize pool is $1 million, but you only get $500,000 for being #1. You're all fighting over that prize. You're all fighting over those dollars. So to try and pull something like that against someone else is basically just saying, like, okay, we don't really think you're on our level. Just get you guys out of here quickly. Let's just have some fun. And I don't like that, because all of these guys on these teams have put in a lot of hours, a lot of work to get themselves to be as skilled at this game as they are, so that they can be professionals, so that they can be at this major, so that they can have this opportunity to try and win that $500,000 as part of the $1 million total that is up for grabs in this tournament. There is another example of that kind of stuff later that I'm going to talk about, but for now, I'm just going to leave it at that for now. But anyways, nobody really pulled away in this game for Fnatic. Nobody broke 30 frags. We had 3 different guys that were close to it. Crims had 28, JW had 28, Dennis had 28, Flesha had 25, Olafmeister was just 1 frag shy at 20. Like, everybody got good consistent kills for the most part. Olafmeister a little bit low, but lower than everybody else, but like, he still had a very good game. But After Team Liquid won out the first half, going up 10-5, went over to CT side. Fnatic started playing well again. They picked up a bunch of rounds. I think it was like 11-10, 11-12, something like that. It had gone back to a really close game, only 1 or 2 rounds separating the teams. Maybe not even that much. It might have actually been tied at the time. Yeah, Liquid called it tactical at 11-11. So, Team Liquid won 1 round at some point, but for the most part, up to then, it had mostly been a Fnatic-sided half, the second half. But once they called that timeout, it was like something seemed to click in Liquid. They slowly pulled farther back, a little bit back in, a little bit more, a little bit more. They started to keep pace with Fnatic a little bit better on the CT side, rather than giving up so many rounds as they had been up to that point. And they managed to make it through into overtime. And once they made it through into overtime, Liquid actually had 2 chances in both overtimes, in first overtime and second overtime. They had the opportunity to have 2 match points, 2 opportunities to win the game. First time around, Fnatic came back, a couple of good rounds, tied it back up, sent it to second overtime. Second time around, Liquid finally managed to pull it off, and they pulled it off right away. As soon as they had that match point, they got it the next round. They didn't wait, they didn't give one back up, they just took control. Now, one of the things that allowed Liquid to adjust after their tactical to hold their own against Fnatic and get that match to overtime is they started to read Fnatic a little bit better. And one of the reasons why they were able to do that is because for the majority of their T side, especially in regulation, I can't remember if it was so much in overtime or not, but definitely during regulation, Fnatic seemed to, every time that they got pressure, every time that they felt some sort of pressure on whatever play they were making, like they weren't quite sure, they defaulted into trying to push B. It's like, okay, we've got a little bit of pressure, let's just go B. Let's throw mid smoke, let's throw side smoke, and depending on the round, and let's just go. And up until that point, it had been working to them. After the tactical, though, Liquid started handling it a little bit better. Right up until the 30th round, where they triple stacked B. They had 3 players playing B, 1 player playing CT, I believe, and then 1 player watching long from sight. And Fnatic set up in their default, gathering intel, feeling a little bit of push, but not too much. But they still decide, okay, we need to decide on a site to push. Let's just go B. And they actually ended up getting the first kill. And they tagged another player very low because they split it. One of the players that they'd had playing window got very tagged. And Fnatic got the kill. The player. And Fnatic killed the player that had been playing plat. But because they had been triple stacking it, because they had 3 players there, I shouldn't be saying triple stack. Don't triple stack. You stack 3 players on a site. But once they stacked those 3 players on B, they got the first kill. They knew where the second guy was. Their player, who had been coming from mid, who had been pushing towards window, got absolutely annihilated by the third guy because they weren't expecting him there. He had made no noise. He had done absolutely nothing to give away his position. So Fnatic was expecting, okay, we killed the guy plat, and we know there's a guy on site because our guy who's attacking window is attacking from mid. Tagged him up a bit, pushed him down to the site. We know where the 2 guys are. Guy mid pushed through window, immediately gone. Guy site, who was a little bit tagged, I think it was Simple, ended up connecting with 2 players with an op, and got help from the other guy on B. So they ended up winning that 15th round and sending it to overtime because they made the right call, stacked the right site, at the right time. But it was a really good match. It was very back and forth. Good plays by both teams. A lot of clutch plays by a number of the players on Fnatic. I can't even think of how many triple kills, 3Ks. Can't talk on Wednesday nights apparently. Can't even think of how many 3Ks Lige had in that map. Like, he just played so effectively in that game. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to look at it right now. I'm just trying to think. 15th round, 15th round. Yeah, 30th round, it was simple from the window. And Lige. When I'm thinking 3Ks, I must be thinking mainly in overtime, because I'm looking at the round performance right now, and other than an ace in round 25, he actually apparently didn't have that huge of a regulation. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15. Yeah, because he had 20 frags in regulation. Not a terrible number, especially since he ended up 20 and 24. But he had 12 frags in 10 overtime rounds. So he had a couple of rounds where he came up pretty big there. Honestly, I think this match shocked a lot of people. I don't think there were enough people that were giving credit to Liquid in their chances in this match. I mean, obviously, if you had to look at the match and say, okay, who do you think is going to win? No, like, who do you actually think will win? Not do you think Liquid has a chance, but who do you think will win? Most people would have said Fnatic. Same as the way that they were doing on the pick'ems on the CSGO, where 99% of people were picking Fnatic to win this match. But especially with the way that players like Hiko and Adren have been playing these 2 days, like in both games that Liquid has played, both Adren and Hiko have played huge. Simple had a little bit of a rough game yesterday, but he came up huge today. And Lige pulled it together during the overtime. Like I said, he went 20 and... oh, I don't even know what he went for deaths in regulation. But in the 10 rounds of overtime, with I believe at least 2 3Ks that I can remember. Because I remember sitting through that overtime thinking that he was doing really well. Like, they just really pulled it out in this match. And I don't know if people are giving people enough credit for it. I think a lot of people are saying that, maybe Fnatic didn't play as well as they should have. Maybe they're taking it a little bit too easy. And that could be true. In one of the overtime rounds, I think it was in the second overtime, while Fnatic was on CT, they had a round where they planted A. I think it was Crims got stuck sitting at B, and he was trying to save a gun, but there was someone lurking around trying to get him. Crims managed to get the kill, and he went for a little bit of a bully play, a little bit of no respect play. He spent at least a good 10-15 seconds extra shooting. I think it was Adren's dead body, teabagging. Like, he spent so much time just screwing around with the dead body of the player that he had killed. And it kind of goes back to like what I was saying earlier about no respect plays. Like that's just stupid stuff that you shouldn't be doing, I think at least, to fellow pros, fellow professionals, regardless of what you may or may not think of them. Like if someone was doing that to Freakazoid with all the big bullying and PS that went on with him lately, stuff with Simple, stuff with 2K, like these are guys who spend a lot of time being professionals, working hard at this game so that they can play it as high a level as they can. Like even if you're higher up on the food chain, even if you're on a better team, even if you think you're on a better team, like they still do deserve respect. Like, even guys on Splice, even in that match, Fnatic versus Splice, even though Fnatic destroyed Splice, and I'm sure they pulled off a couple of those no respect plays against Splice as well. Like these are guys who are considered lower tier, but you know what? They're trying to put up a fight. They're trying to do their best. They've put in the time to get here and worked hard to do it. Like they deserve the respect. It doesn't matter whether or not they're playing Liquid or Fnatic or anybody else. They deserve that respect. But yeah, that to me was the match of the night. I've obviously spent the most time talking about it. Some of it maybe a little bit redundant, but like just so much to talk about that match. Match number 3 of the winner's circle, Astralis vs CLG. Map was Overpass. CLG put on good pressure early. They actually managed to come out to an early lead. I think it was 6-1 at one point. But then Astralis just took over. CLG started CT side. They got a couple of good early frags, put them in a good position, but it was kind of the same thing as what I was talking about with C9 on day 1. Like, they started off good, but once they started giving up rounds, there was no push, there was no push back, and Astralis was just kind of allowed to run away with the match. Like, I kind of talk about no respect plays a little bit. On match point, Astralis did a strat that they like to call on Overpass, where they have 3 players in water, 1 player sitting at the top of it on B site. And the way that they do it is so that it looks like there's only 1 player on site, so that once that first player gets contact, he's able to give information whether he lives or dies, whether he gets any frags or not. And then the other 3 players are able to come out from around the back of site, or around the platform that site is on in pit, and then kind of surprise the other team. Because you would expect players to be sandbag, you expect them to be heaven, you expect them to be toxic barrels, you expect them to be graffiti. Like, there's so many players you could expect players to be, but you would not expect 4 players to be sitting in pit behind site like that, in water. Like, again, it just kind of goes back to no respect plays, but I don't know. CLG start off well. Once Astralis gained momentum, though, they just were never able to push back. And part of that was just because it didn't seem like there was any creativity to CLG's T side. There wasn't really any plays that stood out that said, ooh, that could have worked, that should have worked. Maybe they should try that again at some point. Because there was just nothing that pushed that well. Anyways, last match of the night, VP versus MV. Navi. I was actually really disappointed in this match. Because I think this should have been a much better match than it was. We ended up getting Cobble. Navi ended up banning Cash, Train, and Inferno. VP banned Dust and Overpass. And they ended up with Cobble. And VP ended up getting to choose what side they started. And I hate to be the one to say that this is where they lost the match. But considering how it played out, considering how that first half played out, this was virtually where they lost the match. Because they chose to start CT side. They chose to do the, what is, like I said before, would normally be considered the hard side first. And it came back to bite them in the ass. Because they struggled on CT side. They struggled mightily on CT side. When they finally got their first kill, when they finally got their first round, I should say, in the 7th, they were down 6-1. Not a single player on VP had more than 5 kills at that point, and only 1 had 5 itself. I think it was Bialy. I'm not 100% sure on that. But only 1 player had 5 kills at that point. Everybody else was like 4, 3, 2. I think there was 2 players with 4. 1, 3, 1, 2. But again, after they got that round, they immediately got reset. They lost a couple rounds. They won 1, got reset again, won a couple more. Like, they never really looked competent on their CT side. They never had a round where they looked like they were actually in control of what they were doing until round 15. Round 15 was where they were finally able to put together a full and proper buy. And it showed. They finally looked prepared on a round, and they finally managed to get a round where they survived with like 3 or 4 players. I think in both of the rounds that they won before that, they'd only survived with like 1 or 2, meaning that's a whole lot of rebuying left to do. Not great for the economy. Sorry about that. A lot of rebuying to do. Not great for the economy. And then to get reset right away makes it even worse. I think after the second one, they even ended up having a double save because they were absolutely tapped out on economy after losing that round. But you know what? They did manage to pick up 3 rounds. They were going towards what should be the stronger side for most teams on Cobble. So you know what? It's looking a little bit bleak, but there's opportunity. There's chance. If they can string together the first couple of rounds, win the pistol, win first gun round, get 5 or 6 to start off the half, suddenly the game is close. Suddenly there's an opportunity. They can maybe give up a round, maybe 2, and they're not done yet. And they had the opportunity to. They had a little bit of technical issues with Pasha at the beginning of the round, but they managed to sort them out. They continued with the round. They ended up doing an A push, and they ended up on site, bomb planted, 4v2. I think 3 players with above 75 health. So still, like, it's not like they had numbers, but like everybody had 5 health left. Like, no, they were on good site. They were in good shape with a bomb plant. They had both players rotating in through, one was coming through door, one was coming through upper arch. And somehow, 4v2 with the bomb plant, they managed to throw it away. Now, Navi managed to get the defuse with maybe a second to spare. And only then because they had a kit. But 4v2, pistol round, such an important round when you've had such a bad first half. You have to win that round. The fact that they lost that put them down 13. They lost second round after that. I think they lost the third round as well, before they finally went into the first gun round and won. But now it's 15-4. You only just got your first round of second half. And they weren't able to put together a complete buy. Navi had some economy, and Navi finished it out. So, at this point, Virtus.Pro moves down to losers bracket. They play G2, best of 3 tomorrow. So this should actually be a very interesting best of 3. We'll have to see how it goes. But winning and losing stuff, the good and bad of day 2, good stuff. Overtimes. We had 2 incredible games that went into overtime. Were absolutely amazing. The first one kind of put the major a little bit behind schedule, but so it ended up being a long day. That's why this video is coming out as late as it is, because I waited till the games were over before I started recording these. But like some great games. Gambit again showing strength. A team that was so much of a wild card going into this. They looked impressive, but how are they going to be able to do against Tier 1 and Tier 2 teams? These teams that are supposed to be like the top teams in CS. And despite losing to Astralis, I felt they did very good, and maybe a little bit easier of a win than it should have been against the defending champions, but they still pulled it off. They still made the shots. They still did what they had to do to get the win. So impressive enough in my books. And what else was impressive? LG. LG. Luminosity Gaming. Not Liquid, not yet. Luminosity Gaming. Huge map. They gave it up early, going back and forth with Nip, letting them stay in the game early, but once they took control, they dominated. Big plays from FNX, big plays from Coldzera. Like it was an impressive showing, and I know a lot of people are talking a lot about Luminosity's chances in this major. A lot of people are thinking it's going to be like a Fnatic Luminosity finish. Um, I hope that match happens at some point or another, Luminosity versus Fnatic, because I think that would be an incredible match. Mouse Sports, Nico has had a huge tournament. He has been big in both games that Mouse has played so far. Unfortunately, they lost the first one, but he came back in a huge way today against Flipside and basically led the charge in their CT comeback. Like, those 52 frags were huge. Other big stuff, Liquid. Like, how can you not give it up to Liquid? Sorry, yawning. It's a little bit late. How can you not give it up to Liquid? They managed to beat Fnatic. They managed to slay the sleeping giant, as it were. It was a hard-fought game. It could have easily have gone either, like, and that's what's most impressive about it. It could have easily gone either way. Fnatic was doing fairly decently. So the fact that Liquid actually managed to hold in there and pull out that win, and it means for the first time since, hold on, there was a thing on the match recap that I saw. It's B on this too. The North American team has not made it out of group stage of a major since ESL Cologne 2014. And they did it by beating the top team in the world on North American soil. So that's a huge achievement. Not only did they beat the #1 team in like pretty much everybody's rankings, but they did it to be the first North American team to make it out of the group stage at a major in almost 2 years. And I know people are going to say, well, what about Luminosity? Luminosity's American team. They made it out of majors. They made it out of group stage. But Luminosity is a South American team, not a North American team. That is specifically North American. That is USA and Canada. Not Brazil, not... I don't know what else is in South America. Don't kill me. But yeah, so huge kudos and shout out to the boys of Liquid for their incredible stuff today against top team. The bad Envy, defending champions out in the group stage. Day 2, they're gone. Bye-bye. They didn't even make it to the best of 3s tomorrow. Like, that's kind of disappointing. That's kind of sad. I mean, some people saw it coming, and it's kind of not surprising considering the struggles that they had. But you would think a team with the amount of skill that they do have on that team, that they still have on that team, that they would find a way to pull it together for the major. Because this is when it counts. This is when it's at its most important. This is when you have to bring your A game. And these last 2 days, Envious did not do that. Navi, FaZe, bad. Good, bad, the early. Counterlogic. Kind of the same thing, sort of, almost, really. Strong start in today's match, but they just kind of crumbled. And once they started crumbling, they just never pulled it back. Flip side, disappointing. Not necessarily bad, but definitely disappointing. They played 2 matches, both were overtime. In 2 games, they played 95 rounds. Like, that is an incredible amount of Counter-Strike in 2 days at this level. Hopefully they learn a lot from it. I really look forward to seeing Flipside pull together some stuff, some good stuff going forward. I think that this is a team to watch. Unfortunately, won't be watching them anymore this week. Disappointed Cloud9. They've had their struggles, same as Envious, but there were a couple of times under their guidance of their new coach where they had pulled out some good games. Were looking to like they were starting to get a little bit better, but unfortunately, last couple of games leading up to the major, they were kind of back up to their old tricks. And then at the major itself, they were without their coach, and they just never really seemed to find it for them here. It's unfortunate. It sucks, but that's what happens. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for day 2. Just kind of a quick something. I do want to kind of talk a little bit on day 3. Hold on, I got the schedule here. So obviously, 4 games for Group 3. We've got Nip versus Mouse, we've got Fnatic versus FaZe, we've got Gambit versus Counter Logic, and we got G2 versus Virtus.Pro. All these are best of 3. And these are the matches that will decide second place. Second place in each group. I don't want to say I'm kind of scared or anything like that, but it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. Nip versus Mouse. Nip is basically going to end up having to face everybody in their group. And they need to win 2 if they want to get through. They managed to defeat Flipside. But now they have to go up against Mouse after losing to Luminosity. And Mouse beat Flipside yesterday. Mouse can be up and down. It's certainly going to depend on what map they get tomorrow. But can Nip Magic really come through this time? Everybody always talks about Nip Magic at majors, but with Threat in the lineup and the fact that he has not really been able to hold his own, and as much as I don't like to say that because I would do no better, but you're in a CS major. For good or for bad or for whatever reason, which unfortunately in this case is the inability to get Pyth a visa to get to the major. For whatever reason, you're in the lineup right now. You have to find a way to pull it together. You have to, because like if Nip loses tomorrow, what are the odds that you're going to be able to look at the scoreboard and say, well, it doesn't look like they played that bad, but then there's this little blip at the bottom of their scoreboard where it says Threat. Like, what happened? I don't want that to be the case. Like, if Mouse wins tomorrow, I want them to win because they play well. If Nip loses, I want it to be because they get outplayed. Not because they play okay, they play with the team, but not the entire team does. Like, I don't know. You look at FaZe versus Fnatic. Can FaZe win that match? Yes. Sure, why not? If FaZe comes out with their absolute best, yes, they have a chance. There's no doubt about it. But the odds, like especially if Fnatic, now with their backs up against the wall, does bring their best game to the table. They've got 3 maps to find 2. And Fnatic is known for being able to pull that kind of stuff out. Even when they lose best of 1s, they come back and win the best of 3s. So, can FaZe do it? Yes. Sure. They're professionals, same as everybody else in this tournament. Can they do it? Yes. Are they likely to? Probably not. Like, I would not be at all surprised if the odds on that match, the pick'ems will probably be about the same as they were today against Liquid. Like 99 to 1. Betting on Lounge and all that kind of stuff probably won't be much better. It'll be like 90 to 10. And the majority of that 10 will probably just be people saying, oh, well, the odds are really crappy against them. Even if I throw crap at it. If they do somehow manage to get it, I'll be a big winner. Just because the odds are so bad. So, it's going to be rough, but they can do it. C second place match, Counter Logic versus Gambit. It depends on the map. It really does. Gambit's looked impressive. Gambit has looked good in this tournament. CLG has looked up and down. CLG has looked very up and down. Like they managed to beat an Envy team that did not look good. Okay. They beat the defending champs, but they did not look like defending champs in this tournament. How much credit can you really give to that win? and then they lost so mightily to Astralis. They started well in that match, but then they absolutely faltered and crumbled through the rest of it. I think that's honestly a 50-50 match. It depends on the match, depends upon who starts what side, and if CLG wants to win, they need to bring a better T side to whatever map they end up getting, because it doesn't matter how good your CT is. If you can't get any rounds on T, because your T side is as abysmal as it was today on Overpass against Astralis, you will lose. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have to find a way to figure out that T side, and they need to do it quick. As for the last map, sorry, not last map, last match against G2. And yeah, I can feel my voice going. I probably sound a lot worse than I did at the beginning of the day. It's just really bad right now. Virtus.Pro versus G2. It's a rematch of day one. Only now it's a best of 3 instead of a best of 1. You gotta question whether or not Train will get back there. How readily is G2 gonna be to ban Train in this scenario? Like, which leaves you wondering what the rest of the map pool will be. What the maps will be. G2 managed to pull it together today after losing yesterday, albeit against a Cloud9 that played very poorly. Question is, after today's loss, will VP be able to recover and refine their game? Because they played well game 1. They played well day 1, but they did not play well at all today in their match against Navi. They plowed through G2 on day 1. They got plowed on day 2. So, hopefully, as a VP fan, I hope they'll be able to find a way to pull it off, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be holding my breath for this one. To all the teams competing tomorrow, good luck. To all the teams with the day off, congratulations. Well done on getting first place in your divisions, but don't get sloppy at this point. It's only going to get harder from here. You need to be at your best. Hopefully, some of the teams competing tomorrow will be too. But anyways, at that point, and at an hour, holy crap. A lot of stuff to talk about on day 2. That's going to be it for me. A lot of stuff to talk about. Some huge stuff happening today. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure that you guys are leaving a like. And let me know what you think about the major so far in the comment section below. If you're following it, if you've been watching it yourself, let me know what you think. Because I'm honestly very interested in your guys' opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I'll see you guys back again next time. But for now, I will see you guys in the next video. I'm out!